Today I thought it would be interesting to see if I could create a functional roguelike game in an hour. So to start, I think I'm just going to create a couple sprites because I'm only going to have an hour for this. It's 11 a.m. right now, kind of convenient, so I think I'm just going to see how much I can get before noon. So I think I want to make all of the sprites be pretty simple overall. Now, as you can see, I made the player sprite really small, so I think I'm going to just make the room as a whole have grid tiles of 8x8 each, which means the game's going to run pretty small. So I think there's a way to fix this. Okay, nice. So it now is still considered a 64x64 grid, but it's just scaled up by a couple times. Okay, I created some basic movements that should just allow the player to move on the tile. Okay, it doesn't work at all. Okay, I realized the reason it doesn't work is because in the room, it's just the sprite, the object isn't actually in the room. So you can move the player around, and it's really glitchy. You can only move down if you're going on a diagonal, and you move up really fast. There's this nice tile-based movement the player gets. So, now I need to figure out enemies. I think the way I want it to work is whenever you move, enemies will also get a chance to either move or attack. So there we go. So I'm gonna have enemies be orange. I'm just gonna have each type of thing have its own color to make it so it's like easier to tell what's going on. So the enemy should yeah, didn't think about that. Okay, so the enemy should have basic tracking of the player. The one thing is that right now, the enemy also has the ability to move diagonal, which I don't want. So now if the enemy would want to move diagonal, it will just choose randomly between the options. Although the enemy still can't attack, and you still can't attack. So I think I need to fix that. First of all, I think I'm going to make it so the enemy will only take its turn sometimes. So essentially the enemy can no longer just be right behind you, because sometimes when you move it'll move and sometimes it'll not. I might remove this if the enemy gets too weak. Okay, I created this basic kind of fireball looking thing, and I think the enemy, this is going to be the projectile. I also just realized it's a bit large, so I think I'm going to actually scale it down a little bit. Okay, so Wait, what? Okay. So I think I actually made it so the enemies create more of themselves instead of creating a projectile. Oh, it just says instance create depth. It doesn't say any information here. Yeah, that's probably the reason. So let's see if this works now. Yeah. Also, I made it so that the projectile will also follow the turn system. Although right now the projectile is kind of useless and also doesn't face the right direction, so I think I need to fix that. First, I think I'm actually going to change the enemy taking turn thing so that it's more likely to take a turn. So it has a 3/4 chance to take a turn, and within that, a 3/4 chance to move and a 1/4 chance to attack. Now, since the attacks are so weak, I might just make it so that if you get hit at all, you just die. Although, the player obviously needs a way to attack as well. Although before I do that, I think I'm going to change something in the player's code so that you can't just hold down to keep moving. So when you click a button, you have to re-click it every time you want to move, essentially. Okay, so the projectile should now point in the correct direction that it is meant to be going in. Okay, so it doesn't. But I guess for now, I think I should add a way of the player to attack, because it's not much to do in the game right now. Cool part about this is that I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to make the player use the same projectile as the enemy, just recolored. So yeah, right now it functions exactly the same, except you can create space to create projectiles that do nothing right now. Now, I think the way I want projectiles to work is that in order to shoot a projectile in a direction, you have to be facing the direction. You know, the player is a triangle. I'm going to add the ability for the player to rotate. Okay, so I just realized that since the player is centered around the corner of the tile, yeah, I don't really want to change the player centering, so I think that what I'm going to do, and this is a really highly advanced technique, is called creating a separate frame for each of the player's sprite. So now the player can rotate, but it doesn't count as a move yet, so I'll just add that real quick. So now the player can also create projectiles and can have them appear in various directions. However, right now the game doesn't know how to distinguish between player projectiles and enemy projectiles, so I'm going to add that now. So now the player will create green projectiles and the enemy will create red projectiles. So next, the step is make the projectiles be able to do stuff. Yeah, player projectiles can now kill enemies. So now I just need to add it so that can go the other way around as well. Pretty simple. So, oh, that's interesting. So it doesn't work at all. I'm gonna get rid of these for now to see if they are somehow breaking the hitbox. Oh, that's interesting. There's some situations where, like, here, it feels like if you go down you'll be safe, but you hit it on the movement. So what I think I'm gonna do is just make all of the hitboxes really small into wall, so that a movement like that will not result in death for the player or enemy. So now if you're in a situation like that, you will be perfectly fine. See? Okay, anyway. I should also make it so that if two projectiles of opposite types collide, they will both be destroyed. So time to test out if two projectiles hitting each other will... Okay, well, the game just... The enemy wasn't powerful enough. I need to make it so the enemy will actually avoid projectiles. Yeah, so as you can see, if I put a projectile there, it will, you know... I also need to make it so that when projectiles touch the player or other enemies, they will destroy themselves. So I've already used 50 minutes and I have this, so I think that what I might do is make a sequel to this video where I continue making the game to actually try making it into a game. Because there's not much you can do in just an hour. So right now the enemy's movement just tells it to go towards the player, but I need to add a thing that makes it so that if it will run into a projectile, it will go in a different direction. So the thing I'm going to do is just have it do 4 checks, or maybe 5. One where it's going is a projectile, and one for each of the 4 tiles around it is a projectile. So it's just going to avoid going near projectiles in general. Also, it is going to update XP in between, so if it runs in a projectile, let's say going left, it'll then switch to going right, and then let's say next it looks to see where it's going, and then one above that, if there's a projectile, one to the right and one above it, it'll now swap where it's going again. So this is going to be far from perfect, but I don't really want the AI to be super smart anyways, so that's fine. So the enemy should be at least a little better. Okay, yeah. One thing I didn't think about is that the enemy will, it runs away from its own projectile. And I think what I need to do is just create a separate player projectile. I don't know why I was even trying to just one spray or object for the both of them. Now I did realize this means the enemy is going to now only run away from its own projectiles. So now oh, that's interesting. So if you create a projectile on the same turn you kill an enemy, that the projectile like reaches the enemy won't even... So for now I'm not gonna have random stuff yet. I'm just gonna put walls around the edge and maybe like a little thing in the middle. Nah. Yeah, as you can see, you can't move into walls. Although, I need to make it so that it does not count as a movement if you go into a wall. Also, as you can see, the projectiles can still go through walls. The enemy is still being dumb and not knowing how to move. So luckily, I believe I'm just able to copy the code from the player wall collisions and add it to everything else. Enemies are still really easy to kill, but the idea is that in a larger version of this game there would be more than one enemy. So you have to think about when attacking, you have to make sure you're safe from all of the projectiles, because there'd be multiple. Anyway, so this took an hour to make. Now, This, I think I could go somewhere with this, so I am going to continue making this, maybe just as normal videos, instead of, can I do something in an hour? Because I feel like that's kind of not the best way of making game dev videos, but you know,